Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another day of learning. Welcome to Institute of Global Professional Free International Webinar. Thank you all for joining with us in this session, and I hope you stay with us till the program ends. And time to time, you like our Facebook page and subscribe our YouTube channel for upcoming information. Before we have completed our 854 webinars successfully. Now, I will be presenting webinar number 855, and the topic name is Application of Educational Management in Academic Areas. Today, I have a speaker from Philippines. Today, our speaker's name is Dr. Jinsky Diozo. She is an education program supervisor at Designate Quality Assurance Division, Department of Education, Regional Officer, Office 6. Let's you welcome our speaker to the screen. Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for joining.
Hello, hello, Sir Kamrul. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. And give a short description about
Thank you,
yourself, then
sir.
you can
Thank you, Sir
start your
Kamrul,
presentation.
and welcome to all of you here in our webinar. Good afternoon. Okay, shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's have first a little taste of our topic for this afternoon. You can use a chat box if you wish to answer this question. So, what comes first in your mind when you hear about educational management in academic areas? So probably you are thinking of classroom setting and approaches. In our case, in educational arena, educational management is the management of the school wherein we manage both the teachers and the learners, and of course the daily processes and activities that may or may not happen inside the school. If you think the same, then you are correct. However, the thought is quite simple and basic. We will learn more of it as we go along. So brace yourself for these next 3 hours as we explore activities under educational management. Good afternoon once again to our moderator, Sir Kamrul, to all the participants monitoring us in this 3-hour webinar. We have our participants in various platforms such as StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, and others. I would like to welcome all of you in this application of educational management in academic areas webinar. I am your speaker for this afternoon, and I am Dr. Jinky L. Josa. I am affiliated with the Department of Education Philippines, Region 6, and I am an Education Program Supervisor designate in Quality Assurance Division. Before we start our webinar proper, I would like to extend my gratitude to the team of IGP for giving me this third time opportunity to have an intellectual sharing with you. Same goes to my superiors and mentors in this profession, our Department Secretary, Honorable Sara Duterte Carpio, at the same time the Vice President of the Philippines, my Regional Director, Dr. Ramir B. Aitica, my Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Pedro Escobar Jr., my Chief Supervisor, Dr. Janata Delgado, to my husband, Lysander Josa, and my children, Lance and Kate, and to the whole family for the support and encouragement, and above all, to our Creator for keeping us safe all the time. So, wherever you are, we always be grateful to our Creator and pray frequently for blessings and safety. So, now let's begin learning. So, what may you expect from this webinar? So, these are objectives. At the end of this webinar, participants will be able to answer the following questions and would be able to understand and appreciate and apply its answers. How do we define classroom management? What are the priorities of classroom management? What are the approaches of classroom management? Next is what is the dimension of classroom management and what is your sociometry in education? And those were the objectives for our intellectual sharing for today. So we will begin for our first topic. So for our first topic, let's answer the question, how do we define classroom management? According to Johnson and Brooke, classroom management is an organizational function in which tasks are performed in a variety of settings, resulting in the inculcation of certain values such as human respect, personal integrity, self direction, and group cohesion. So, furthermore, according to Oxford, classroom management can be defined as the actions of the teachers. It is to establish and sustain the environment that fosters students' academic achievement as well as their social, emotional, and moral growth. In other words, the goal of classroom management is not for order's sake, but for order for the sake of learning. Teachers, administrators, parents, students, and the general public all view classroom management as critical component of teaching. But becoming an effective classroom manager is not a simple endeavor. Hence, it is a process by which teachers and schools create and maintain appropriate behavior of students in classroom settings. All right? We have here the five priorities of classroom management. First is the developing of effective learning relationship with the learners. So according to Johnson, the most important component of classroom management is relationships. The relationship with your students starts at the door when you shake their hand and greet them with a smile. Of course, regardless of what misbehavior might happen or had happened before, those relationships are strengthened, for example, when I use student's name and actively praise him or her. Those relationships are solidified when you spend individual time with each other. It is to get to know them, then use that knowledge to create personal learning opportunities. Okay, moving on. For the second priorities, we have here immerse learners and how learning takes place in the classroom. Your students need to know that you do not expect them to instantly learn, that everyone has an individual process for learning, and that if they follow your guidance, they will be successful in learning. This is more than just talking about your homework policy, late work, and absences. It is revealing to your students how you are going to create with them a highly effective, low maintenance learning team. This also includes how you will rate them on certain activity or task, your expectations, and what they can expect from those activities. Since the reason for learning is your learners, it is right to involve them in. Moving on, the third one is protecting and leveraging time. An effective classroom manager must be prepared with materials and knowledge on how to transition students from one activity to another without wasting time. The number on the things we could do to increase our students' academic performance is to increase the time spent on learning. Time is chipped away by taking attendance, announcements, class meetings, special presentations, awards, celebrations, and myriads of other things. For special activities, it should be scheduled in your calendar so that it will not take the days which are allotted for learning. And in pre learning activities like taking up attendance, you should devise strategies that would shorten the time on doing it. You can use seating arrangement technique, class monitor, or anything you can think of as long as the goal is to maximize learning time. Same goes to your announcements. All right, let's continue to the next. Our number four priorities is anticipating students' behavior in well written lesson plans. So, according to Grant Wigens, channeling students' behaviors, interest, and attention into productive learning paths requires intuitive lesson planning. First, focus on how students will be able to demonstrate that they understand and have achieved the learning objective. Furthermore, according to Marzano, the focus of our lesson planning efforts should be getting students to ask and answer their own questions. Coming up with those types of questions on the spur of the moment can be difficult. But with a little advanced thought, you can incorporate those types of questions into your lessons. Ultimately, the best discipline management plan is a good lesson plan. Finally, we have here the number five, establishing standards of behavior that promote student learning. These standards should promote learning as well as or eliminate behaviors that impede learning. They shouldn't be so detailed as to the list every behavior and the corresponding consequence for their failure to comply. But they should hit the main points regarding showing respect, communicating correctly, and coming prepared to learn. The standards should also interact smoothly with other four components we discussed, especially teaching your students how learning takes place in your classroom. This is tantamount to your class rules or to your activity rules. For example, you may simply say if you have questions, you may raise your hand and wait for me to recognize you before talking. As a teacher, you can have various creative strategies on establishing your rules or standards that make learning fun but not autocratic. We always remember failure to set your standards means failure to set your goal. So now we will proceed to the approaches to classroom management. Here we have the list. I had listed here the six approaches where we can apply in your classroom, which is ever effective depending on the needs of your learners. So these are, we have first the Herbartian approach, the evaluation approach, managing teaching learning, organizing teaching, modular approach, teaching phases, and operations. We will discuss this one by one. So for the Herbartian approach, it is very old and classical approach. It is composed of 5 steps, which are the preparation, the presentation, comparison, abstraction, and generalization. It is content-centered approach to the classroom management. It employs teacher-controlled instruction. All the classroom activities are managed and controlled by the teacher, and students are the passive listeners. It stresses on the memorization of content. It is known as a thoughtless teaching. Moving on, we have here the evaluation approach. Bloom had developed this approach to classroom teaching. It considered that teaching is tripolar process. These are the educational objectives, learning experiences, and change in behavior. The classroom management is to realize the education objectives. The purpose of managing classroom activities is to provide learning experiences to the students, and objectives are measured with the help of change of behaviors. The classroom management is objectives centered. The classroom activities are managed for realizing the objectives. So we can tell that our learners learn by seeing if their behaviors change for the better. Otherwise, there is no learning at all. So moving on to the next. The next approach is managing teaching learning. A teacher has to play role of a manager and he has to manage classroom activities. This approach is based on the modern theory of human organization and relationships. So we have here the 4 steps. We have the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Organizing and leading steps are related to classroom management. The controlling steps provide the feedback to classroom management. These 5 learning structures are generated through classroom management from primary to higher stage. This is continuum and great variation in classroom management. So we have here now the approach, organizing, and teaching. This approach assumes that teaching is a continuum for more thoughtless to most thoughtful. So we have here memory level, followed by the understanding level, and the third is the reflective level. At memory level, classroom management is controlled and dominated by teacher. It is a memory level of teaching in which the teaching is done to provide textbook knowledge to students, and the emphasis is more given to memorization rather than learning. It is not said to be the best level of teaching as memorizing anything is not good, and importance should be given to understanding the concept. Well, this level helps in increasing the memory power. So we have also here the advantages of memory level. So for the advantages, it is beneficial for young students. It is also useful for slow learners. It is helpful for children for learning new concepts. So the basis for understanding the reflective level of the teacher. So at the understanding level, classroom management, it is controlled by both teacher and the learners. So here at number two, the understanding level teaching is more deliberate teaching method, which students interact with concepts and, as the name implies, comprehend the content. They evaluate the concept and bring together the facts and other notions associated with them based on the student's prior awareness and comprehension level. Teachers and students are also equally interested in this phase and in this teaching stage. Teachers uses debates, seminars, and explanations and other similar methods. So the classroom atmosphere is welcoming and stimulating. So for the advantages of this level or the understanding level, we have here first is effective learning. We have also development of different cognition level, set stages for entering into the reflective level of teaching, and interaction level is good. So for the number three level, the reflective level, the learners dominate in managing the classroom activities. It is a problem solving stage of teaching. The introspective level of teaching is also known as the reflective level. This is the most advanced level of the teaching learning method. This is all because teaching does not end until the students have grasped the ideas. It goes beyond comprehension and requires students to focus on what they have heard or understood. This is more advanced stage in which the learner advances one step further through the concept to comprehend the concept's multiple dimensions. This is the level of instruction in which the instructor encourages and stimulates students to think about and reflect on the content and concepts they have learned. So, for the advantages of reflective level, we have thoughtful mode of operation. It is learner centered and it develops problem solving skills. It has a maximum flexibility and it's develop your creativity and also it is self motivating. So moving on, we have now the modular approach of teaching. It became popular when the pandemic hit. So this teaching model are used in managing classroom activities. Modular approach is an emerging trend educational thinking that shifts traditional methods of instruction to an outcome based learning paradigm. Modularization is based on the principle of dividing the curriculum into small, discrete modular or units that are independent, non sequential, and typically short in duration. Module is a unit of work in a course of instruction that is virtually self contained, and a method of teaching that is based on building up of skills and knowledge in a discrete units. Therefore, a module is a course that together with other related courses can constitute a particular area of specialization. It is associated with the notion of delivering knowledge in a bit sized and therefore lend itself to time shortened and intensive modes of delivery. Modular approach to teaching enables the learner to have control over his or her learning and accepts greater responsibility for learning. It demands greater maturity on the part of the learner. The modules is more appropriate for more mature students. Okay, for the next approach, we have operations of classroom teaching. It has three stages. It is also known as phases or stages of teaching in the classroom. A general format of classroom management requires three stages of managing classroom activities. We have here the pre-active phase refers to planning. Interactive phase refers to the conduct and management. And the post-active phase refers to the follow-up and consolidation. So let's talk about it one by one. So for the pre-active stage, this is the first phase, the pre-active phase of teaching. It is the phase of planning for teaching. Good planning makes the task of the teacher smooth, functional, and successful. There are one two major objectives involved or major steps involved in this phase. First, we have the establishment of some kind of goals or the objective. So first we should establish the goal or the objective. And then the second step is to discover ways and means to achieve those objectives. So they are just two, establishing and discovering the ways. So operation of teaching at pre-active phase. Before the classroom teaching, a teacher has to perform many tasks. This phase includes all these activities which a teacher performs before entering the classroom. This stage involves the following activities. So before the teacher enters into the classroom, he or she prepares this first. We have the formulation or the fixing of your goal, selection of content or subject matter to be taught. Three, we have the arrangement of ideas and style of teaching. Fourth, selecting intuitional methodology. Next, we have the development of teaching strategies, deciding the duration, the place, and the management of teaching, and then the decision about the evaluation tools and techniques to be used. So that teacher undergoes these seven steps before he or she start his classes. So this stage is about working out the details of the teaching or activities teacher wanted to perform. Here, teacher hypothesizes about the possible outcomes of his action. So, moving on, we have the second stage. The next phase is the interactive phase of teaching. So, this phase refers to the execution of the plan made during the pre-active phase. This is actual classroom teaching. In this phase, the teacher gives students the learning experiences through some suitable modes. In this phase, teachers give learning a predetermined environment. The teacher interacts with the students so that desired changes can be brought in the learner. So learning is directed in the predetermined directions to achieve predetermined goals. So in this process, the teacher provides learners with a verbal stimulation. This stimulation can be of various kinds. So, for example, asking questions or listening to students' responses, providing guidance, making explanations, and others. So, how this teaching and at the interactive phase operates. So, this phase of teaching, it includes all those activities which teacher uses after entering the classroom. It also includes actual teaching done in the classroom. In this face-to-face encounter with the learners, here the teacher uses some of the technique like aids and materials planned on the first phase. This helps the teacher in achieving the relevant objectives that were already set. Here, the following operations are undertaken by the teacher. So, these are the operations. We have number one, setting up the classes. So, it refers to the activity of perceiving the due size of the class, getting the feel of or the mood of the learners. Here, the teacher should be aware of how many in the group are looking attentive, how many are negligent and disinterested, who are sharper ones, who are the troublemakers, or etc. So that is for the setting up of the class. So after the teachers set up the class, he will know the learners. So this is the second step, knowing the learners. It means to know about the previous knowledge of the new learners. It is done after preserving the class size. For this, teacher can start by knowing the abilities, interests, attitudes, and academic background of the learners. So to know the learners, we must know what they have learned already. So for the third step, the teacher now will be start to teach. At this stage, the teacher start teaching. This is done after diagnosing by questioning. Here we have two activities involved. We have the initiation and the response. So for the initiation and response, it is known as the verbal interaction. In the verbal interaction phase of teaching, the classroom have interaction between the teacher and the students. The interaction may be verbal or nonverbal. Interaction is the most important at this stage. This is the interchange between the teacher and the students by initiation or response operation. In this phase, all the activities performed by a teacher when he enters the classroom are combined together. These activities, one concerned with the presentation of content in the class. Okay, we'll proceed to the next phase. So the last phase is the post-active phase of teaching. In this phase, the evaluation is taking place. So this we called all this evaluation phase also. It arises when the teacher has left the class and tries to have a look back into what happened in the class. This phase is concerned with the following activities. We have evaluation activities. So evaluation activities is found in the post-active stage. So here we are giving quizzes uh, in various ways by observing students' reactions to quizzes, instructional situation, and comments. And that's it. So about evaluation, we can have different kinds of evaluation according to what we are intended to measure. So we have the next. activity. This is the summing up of teaching tasks. So to sum up to sum up the task, the teachers ask the questions from the learners verbally or in written form. The behaviors of the students are also measured in order to evaluate their achievements. Absence of these evaluation activities, the entire learning process could be incomplete. So this is a vital aspect and it should not be absent in our process. So for the activities or the operations at the post-active phase, we have here first we have to the determining the exact dimensions of behavioral change. Here the teacher compares the actual behavioral change in the students with their expected behavioral change. If desired behavioral change are observed in the maximum students, then it means that teaching strategies are very effective. So, the next is selection of the testing devices and techniques. For comparing desired and actual behavioral changes, the teacher has to select appropriate testing devices which are valid and reliable. For this criterion, tests are more preferred than the performance test. So the third one is changing the strategies of testing. The student's testing result is also used for evaluating the effectiveness of instructions and teaching strategies. It should provide the base of improving the teaching and changing strategies of teaching. So that's it for our. Uh, so we will proceed now to the next topic. We have to determine the dimensions of classroom management. So we have here the four dimensions of classroom management. The approaches of teaching and classroom management reveal the great variation in the structure. These approaches provide the general format of classroom management. The classroom management consists of four dimensions. We have first the physical dimension or the environment, followed by the social and cultural dimension, third, the psychological dimension, and the last one is the ethical considerations and value dimension. In managing classroom activities, teacher has to consider these four dimensions. So now we will talk about the physical dimensions or the environment. Physical dimension of the classroom is important because it is where the education takes place. It dictates the types of activities that are possible as well as the type of behavior. For example, if there are two doors in a classroom, the teacher must keep an eye on both doors because that creates two-way that scared students can be or can escape. Aspects of the physical dimension as according to Savage, it includes size of the room, shape of the room, location of the doors, location of the windows, movement of individuals with a space. Although teachers cannot change the size of the room or the location of the doors and the windows, teacher must be aware of the physical dimension and use it to their advantage. Reason being, the physical dimension creates behavior settings. So behavior settings, it refers to the environments that are designed to influence the behaviors or actions of those who occupy the setting. Environments communicate expectations to those who come into it. For example, when you walk into the room with colorful decorations, it indicates to you that this is a time to enjoy yourself as much as possible. Therefore, teachers need to set up their classrooms in such a way that it communicates to students that is expected of them. In classroom, first impressions are extremely important. We have here the ways in which teachers can alter behavioral settings as according to Savage 2010. So it is first based on arranging students' desks. So first we'll discuss this. The arrangement depends on the type of interaction desired for instruction. So the arrangement of your chairs or your desk that is not permanent. You can rearrange that anytime based on the needs of your instruction. For example, if you want students to participate in discussion or cooperative learning groups, you would put students' desks in a table. If you are focused on independent work, you do not want to have students facing one another at their desk and would therefore create rows that all face at the front of the classroom. Or an individual level, teachers must consider the self-control ability of the students as their seating is arranged. If a student lacks self-control in socializing, it would be best not to place that student in the back of the classroom next to a friend. So the seating arrangement, as what I've said, it depends on your needs or the situation inside your classroom. It should not be permanent. Okay, moving on. We have next the student density. It is the number of individuals that occupy the space. If a classroom is too crowded, students might feel threatened by any invasion of personal space. It is suggested that this causes more deviant behavior because there is a decrease in privacy and increase in the ability socially interact. These aspects are determined by the cultural context of the students. Therefore, teachers should always keep an eye of caution out for students that may be signaling signs of anxiousness or stress due to a high student density. If this occurs, teachers can rearrange classroom or the classroom furnitures like your filing cabinets and the desk in order to help students not feel so crowded. So with this student density, we must practice the exact classroom size. We should not overcrowd the classroom. Okay, moving on. Next is the action zone. Action zone is the area closest to the teacher's position. It is unlikely that students are grouping up in the action zone, which tends to be where the most students are involved and attentive at any given time. Teachers can use this to their advantage by assigning students who are struggling behaviorally and academically seats in the action zone. because the action zone is limited when a teacher does not move through a lesson. It was suggested that teaching from different spots in the classroom because it increases the number of students who occupy the action zone. The action zone is the area closest to the teacher's position. So we can make the action zone anywhere in the classroom, not only in the center or where your blackboard is located is. That's why we encourage teacher to move around the classroom while teaching. Okay, we'll proceed to the next. The teacher proximity. As discussed in the action zone, teachers should stay as close as to many students as possible. This allows for an increase in teacher monitoring of students and keeps students on task in order to remain close to the largest amount of students for the greatest amount of time. Teachers should utilize proximity. An example would be rearranging the furniture to increase the number of students in the row. So the key there is teachers should be always near to their students, not only posting at one position, but moving around inside the classroom. So moving on to the next, we have the traffic patterns. In arranging classroom furnitures, the teacher patterns or traffic patterns of the students and teachers need to be considered. Both students and teachers need to be able to enter and exit the classroom quickly, have easy access to classroom materials, and move around without disturbing other students. Aisles way should be large and free of obstructions. Teachers should have easy access to all students' desks so that all students can be monitored. So next we have the teacher's desk or the teacher's table. All good teachers know that teaching should never occur from seated position. So we do not suggest sitting. Therefore, in order to keep in accordance with this and previous spatial dimensions, the teacher's desk should be placed in an obtrusive spot. This includes the back or rear of the room. Because it will be out of the way, the teachers will be able to utilize mobility and proximity and student monitoring. It also creates a private area of the classroom for one-on-one teacher-students conversation. Now we will discuss the teacher movement. In order to keep as many students in action zone for as long as possible, teachers must develop the habit of constantly moving about the classroom. Furniture should be arranged with a mindset of being at any desk within a matter of seconds. That way, a teacher can quickly and effectively reach students' desks and, and it should not be a problem. Of course, when they need assistance, teacher is always there. Finally, we have the activity boundaries. Different parts of the classroom are designated for different types of activities. For example, students do not participate in learning centers at the back counter near the kitchen sink. Rather, learning centers should take place in a group of desks. Space and should be arranged for different activities such as independent and group work. Believe it or not, creating activity boundaries by clearly identifying the types of activity to be performed in a given space increases students' security, which helps them maintain self control. For example, teachers can create a reading corner for students to go to when they have finished an assignment early. We will proceed to the next dimension. This is the second dimension, the social and cultural dimension. A classroom is a miniature of society as well as of an institution. A classroom management involves relationship, social, and cultural environment, which depends on the following. So we have a teacher and taught relation among students, relation between teacher and principal, and a relationship between or among teachers. A teacher must know the background of his students and their entering behavior and learning abilities and interests. Education is the creator and the creator of the society. The new society is shaped in the classroom of an educational institution through a desirable society and cultural environment. The reasoning goes that cultural expression are an inherent part of the social life of all communities. It can be found in physical cultural manifestations such as infrastructure, art, exhibitions, performance art, theater, and music. This represents tangible culture and hold the inventory of society's signs and symbols. Signs and symbols are in turn powerful indicator of the values of the said society. For example, the story, language used, and props of local stage play will reflect the political and social values of the community it was created in. Another is it can be found in the identity of the individuals and groups. Society is made up of groups, all with their own cultural attributes that include the signs and symbols, values, norms, customs, and language. Beyond the biological or psychological factors that influence the behavior, each individual is also a product of unique combination of group identities. The group identities can be influenced by include national or regional or demographic hedonistic your hobbies or the urban or the rural. We are now in the third dimension, which is the psychological dimension. It is said that no learning without motivation. The main focus of classroom management is to facilitate learning. Teacher motivates his students verbally and through his actions or the nonverbals. He also reinforces their desirable behaviors. Teacher involvement in classroom management encourages the students' participation. The psychological dimension plays a significant role in the students' participation and their learning. It is a criterion for an effective classroom management. We have to talk about psychological precepts that will help students to learn effectively. So these are the psychological precepts that will help students to learn effectively. We have the prior knowledge, facilitating context, practice, feedback, and creativity. So first we will learn about the prior knowledge. What students already know affects their learning. So research shows that prior knowledge influences both conceptual growth and conceptual change in the students. With conceptual growth, students add to their existing knowledge, and with conceptual change, students correct misconceptions or errors in their existing knowledge. Facilitating conceptual growth or change requires first obtaining a baseline level of students' knowledge prior to the start of each unit through formative assessment. The results of this discussion can guide the selection of assignments and activities that will be appropriate for facilitating either conceptual growth or conceptual change. The prior knowledge can be used to help students incorporate background knowledge and draw connections between units during the course. Moving on to number two, we have the facilitating context. So, learning is based on context. So, generalizing learning to new context is not spontaneous, but rather than needs to be facilitated. Students' growth and deeper learning are developed when teachers help students to transfer learning from one context to another. Students will also be better able to generalize learning to new contexts if teachers invest time in focusing on deeper learning. The next precept is the practice. Acquiring long-term knowledge and skill is largely dependent on practice. This principle details empirically based on strategies that will help students more effectively encode learned materials into long-term memory. In addition to those in the memory unit, example from this principle can help inform instruction through the course by using formative, formative assessment frequently through practice problems or activities and sample tests. Your teacher can help the students increase their knowledge, skills, and confidence. So moving on the number five precept, we have the feedback. Clear explanatory and timely feedback to students is important for learning. This idea highlights the importance of teacher responses and indicates the best manner in which to deliver feedback to students in order to maintain or increase motivation motivation to learn. So providing frequent and ongoing feedback is a significant means of improving achievement in learning. It involves the provision of information about aspects of understanding and performance can be given by practitioners, peers, oneself, and for learners to practitioners. Effective feedback assists the learners to reflect on their learning and their learning strategies so they can make adjustments to make better progress in learning. For the number five preset, we have the creativity. Students' creativity can be fostered. Creativity is considered as critical skill for the technology-driven world of the 21st century. And because it is not a stable trait, it can be taught, nurtured, and increased. The principle describes specific methods of structuring assignment to increase creativity and ideas for how to model, create problem solving, and also creativity in the classroom can include opportunities for the student designed research projects or the video projects, demonstrations, and modeling, model building, or others. So creativity has no limit. Now we will proceed to the last dimension, which is the ethical consideration and value dimension. It is the most important dimension of classroom management. Teachers' role in this classroom are both a manager and a leader. They influence the students' behavior. They should maintain classroom code of and conduct, and in this dimension, the classroom management is concerned with the feeling, attitudes, and values aspects of the students. Values are ideals of some or group about what is good or bad, or desirable or undesirable. While ethics is all about reasoning how to do the right action. So values motivates while morals and ethics constrains. Values deal with what is important while ethics deal with what is right. What is to be achieved is determined by your values, while what is the correct action to do it is determined by your ethics. Usually, values differ from person to person, while ethics is considered universal. This dimension is beyond physical, but it will help to mold into what kind of learners you will be producing. Are they righteous or are they desirable? So when you meet your former students somewhere, say in the mall, and they greet you or ignore you, those actions have been products of their ethical and value dimensions. Now you may ask yourself, how did you do on that dimension? Did you do good or not? The responses will answer you. Okay, moving on to our last topic. What is your sociometry in education? So the learners and the teachers reveal in their attitude and behavior the influences of the experiences they have had in their homes and community. They reflect its characteristics in many forms. Learners, teachers, and the community constitute the center of the interactions that originate out of the academic, psychological, and social situations of the school. The quality of the interactions that lead to human relations within the school and between the community is determined by the social and psychological structure of the school and the impact of the learning experiences of the learners and the school climate. So we have here the sociometry, the teacher at focus, teacher learner relations, teacher learner relations, and teacher teacher relations. First, we will talk about teacher at focus. On teacher at focus, the teacher is a significant figure in the school with the learners in the classrooms and holding joint responsibility with the parents in the welfare of the learner's education. The teacher, the parents, and the community generated manifold waves of interrelationship which call for an understanding of the nature of the services of the school. The teacher needs to develop himself professionally and maintain a wholesome personality and a mature mind in order to strengthen the bonds of relationship. Next is the teacher learner relations. The teacher and the learner should have a satisfying relationship between each other. If the teacher can satisfy the social and psychological needs of the students, favorable attitudes are developed in the classroom. This could be done by listening to the learners, responding to their suggestions, accepting their feelings, involving them in teaching and learning processes, and encouraging their efforts, thus creating a warm, supportive, and positive emotional climate in the classroom. Such climate enhances emotional security, motivates learning, and leads to high standard of achievement. Moving on to the learner learner relationship. The relationship among the learners can either stimulate or thwart the growth of each other in many ways. It is necessary for the teacher to understand the relationship operating among students. The learners need a period in which they relate to each other as equal and so learn to stand on their own. In a peer group, there is a grand shift from activity orientation to thought, feeling, and personality orientation. The learners exchange ideas and feelings with peers, clarify, clarify interpersonal relationships. Conservation in peer groups develops social sensitivity and skills. So now we have here in teacher-teacher relationships or relations. There are many common areas for cooperation and mutual help such as marking, promotion, reporting of activities of students, interdisciplinary topics, community and social service, and others. In fact, an attitude of a mutual helpfulness is contagious, and favorable effects teacher-learner and teacher-teacher relationship is in especially decreasing staff conflicts and promoting harmony among them. Teacher development programs should therefore lay stress on the importance of working with other teachers and developing skills necessary to work successfully with teaching peers, stressing on the need to communicate adequately and appropriately. Next, we have the teacher principal relationship and the teacher community relationship. So for the teacher principal relationship, teacher get opportunities to come in contact with the principals in their daily routine of work and develop harmonious relationship with them as long as the principal or the school head do not indulge in authoritarianism and teachers aware of their rule within a democratic setup. However, when interpersonal difficulties are encountered, instead of blaming the other, good human relations can be retained if each thinks in terms of weakness on the part which could have been responsible for the problems created in work with the other. The principal should exhibit a belief in the worth of all his or her teachers, respect them, and see to it that all live and work in harmony. Finally, the last is the teacher community relations. Teacher not only have to establish good rapport with learners other teachers, and administrators, but also to create sound relationship with the parents and other community members. This sort of relationship will have considerable effect on the success of the students' efforts and on the effectiveness of the teachers. The teachers' community relationship extend beyond the parents group and enables them to participate as good citizens of the community. So that's it for our topic for today. So we have our references. I am posting it there. Okay. And thank you. So once again, I am your speaker, Dr. Chinky L. Josa from DepEd RO6 Education Program Supervisor or Designate at Quality Assurance Division. So I am leaving you with these proverbs. Good planning and hard work leads good prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. That ends our intellectual sharing for this afternoon. Welcome, Rule.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your wonderful and very comprehensive presentation. I hope our
Hello,
participants
sir.
learn a lot from you. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, now we are going to our Q&A session. After a short video clip, we come back again with our Q&A session. Okay, ma'am? Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, today we have no quiz competition, so we run our Q&A. After a short video clip, we come back with our speaker. Thank you. Sudah, sudah. Dear participants, this is our question and answer session time. You can send your question in our comment box. If you have any question related this topic, you can ask the question in the comment box. Our speaker ready to answer the question. So participants are requested to ask their question in the comment box. Dear participants, we are still waiting for your question. And our first question is, how is sociometry important in the school and classroom setup? Sorry, ma'am, we can't hear you. No, ma'am, we can't hear you. No, ma'am, you are not audible. No sound, ma'am. You can unplug your microphone. No sound, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Hello, Sir Kamrul. Am I be
Yes,
heard?
ma'am.
Am I
Yes,
heard?
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
ma'am.
you.
It's now okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, for the first question, how sociometry is important. Anyway, what I have discussed are all important. Yes, and I put the sociometry as in the last topic because it is very important since we are dealing with the students or your learners, we are dealing with the parents, and we are dealing with the community. And then those things are the important aspects as we want to create a good relationship with the students and the parents and the community. The school is not will never be exist will never exist if we don't have the students who are from the community, and if we do not have the teachers who run the school, they are our frontliners. That's why the sociometry of education is very important, and um, that thing is the important aspects for the success of the delivery of education. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, how can you manage a class of 100?
Again, I can.
How can you manage a class of 100?
How can you manage the
A
poor
class of
classroom
100.
management? Is it from Sir Plomy? What are
No, ma'am, it's
can
not
can
for
you write
me.
the question, sir? I hear.
It's
How
already
can you
flat on
manage a class of
of
100?
100.
Okay, I see it. Okay. From Sir Mugo, hello. If you have a class of 100, first of all, you should divide it because we cannot have that big class size. The ideal class size is um, 30 to, yes, 30, 35. That will be enough already. And then that 100 is big enough if you will manage that together. So you can first divide it into sections. You can have three sections because we cannot have just to give education or conduct classes just by holding them in an auditorium that's big enough. So we can have them in small classroom size, and we should interact with them as much as possible individually. So, Sir Yuga, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, good afternoon, ma'am. And the question is, What is the best way of managing the behavior and academic performance of students?
Hello, Ma'am Lorely. So, if you're asking for the best way, you can answer it yourself. First, um, you should know the behavior of your students first, and the prior knowledge, as what we have discussed before, their academic performance earlier. So you must know their level first, because you cannot have the perfect pill or one shot that we can give. Okay, you use this one. So there is no exact technique to be used, as long as you do not know the background of your students. Know them first, and you yourself, you will know what is the best way to manage them.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, good afternoon, ma'am. What are the causes of poor classroom management?
Sir Plomy, hello, good afternoon. What are the causes of poor classroom management? The causes of poor classroom management is the absence of the four dimensions, or the mismanagement of the four dimensions. Now that we discussed it, so maybe we can start improving the four dimensions of the classroom, and surely the classroom will be managed well.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, how are you going to assess a good classroom management?
The assessment of a good classroom management could be, it depends to the assessor, whoever who assess them. So, based on our discussion earlier, a good classroom management, or the should have, or should promote the change of behavior of the students to the better, because they will learn if they have a change in behavior for the better, not for the worse.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You answer all the questions very clearly. Thank you so much for your wonderful
Thank
presentation and
Thank
sharing
you
your
very
knowledge with our participants. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sir Kamrul, and thank you very much to those who participated in the Q&A and those who watched this live webinar.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, today our program name is Application of Educational Management in Academic Areas. And today our certification code is IGP 0594. The code is IGP 0594. Without code, no one is eligible for certificate. With code, you can claim your certificate anytime from our website. Our website address is eduigp.com. To download your certificate, first of all, you have to go to our website, and after that, you have to enroll the program, and the program name is Application of Educational Management in Academic Areas. And after that, you have to enter the code, and the code is IGP0594. Then you can download your certificate. After downloading your certificate, don't forget to celebrate with IGP checking. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am Maribel de la Cruz. We hope we'll meet together in our evening session. Thank you. Stay happy and stay safe.